You've always been too weak to handle real life, Eleanor. That's why I'm taking over everything." Those words came from my own daughter Victoria at my 65th birthday party, in front of my entire family. She stood there in her expensive business suit, announcing that she was having me declared mentally incompetent so she could control my finances and protect me from myself. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Letters to Helen and tell us where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. My name is Eleanor Chen, and I just turned 65. For 40 years, I built a successful accounting firm from nothing, raised 3 children as a single mother, and saved every penny for my retirement. I thought my family respected what I'd accomplished. I was completely wrong. What Victoria didn't know was that I'd been preparing for her betrayal for 8 months. My 65th birthday party was supposed to be a celebration. I'd rented the private dining room at Riverside Country Club, the same place where I'd celebrated every major milestone for the past 20 years. All my children were there. Victoria, my oldest at 38, a corporate lawyer who'd never forgiven me for divorcing her father. Marcus, my middle child, a gentle teacher who avoided conflict at all costs. And Jennifer, my youngest at 28, who worked as a nurse and usually stood up for what was right. The evening started normally. We ordered dinner, shared stories, and I opened presents. Then Victoria stood up, tapping her wine glass like she was making a toast. "Everyone, I have an important announcement," she said in her courtroom voice. "As some of you know, Mom has been making some concerning financial decisions lately." The table went quiet. Marcus stopped eating. Jennifer looked confused. "What are you talking about?" I asked calmly. Victoria pulled out a folder from her briefcase. "You've been giving money to online scammers, Mom. You bought a timeshare in Florida that doesn't exist. You're showing signs of early dementia." The lies came so smoothly, so confidently, that for a moment even I wondered if I was losing my mind. "I've consulted with medical professionals and attorneys," Victoria continued. "We're going to file for conservatorship. It's for your own good," Jennifer gasped. "Victoria, what are you talking about?" Mom is sharp as ever. "Jenny, you don't see the big picture," Victoria replied coldly. "Mom's assets need professional management before she loses everything." That's when I reached into my purse and pulled out my own folder. "Since we're making announcements, Victoria, I have one too." I stood up and placed the folder on the table where everyone could see it. "This contains copies of all the emails you sent to your brothers and sister, planning this little intervention. It also contains bank records showing the $50,000 loan I gave you last year that you've never repaid. And most interesting of all, it contains documentation of your gambling addiction." Victoria's face went white. "Mom, what are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago, when I first discovered your debts. Let me back up and explain how I knew this was coming. It started 6 months ago when Victoria began visiting more frequently. She'd drop by unannounced, asking questions about my finances, suggesting I was getting forgetful, offering to help with my bills. At first, I was touched by her attention. After years of barely speaking to me, suddenly she wanted to spend time together. She'd take me to lunch and casually ask about my retirement accounts, my investments, the value of my house. Then I noticed things going missing. Small things at first. My spare checkbook, bank statements, my address book. When I asked Victoria about them, she'd look concerned and suggest that maybe I was becoming absent-minded. The final warning came from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who'd known our family for 15 years. "Eleanor," she said one morning while I was getting my mail, "I don't want to interfere, but I saw Victoria going through your mailbox yesterday when you weren't home." That's when I hired Detective Ray Morrison, a retired police officer who specialized in elder fraud cases. What Ray discovered shocked me. Victoria had been building a case against me for months. She'd contacted my doctor's office claiming to be concerned about my memory. She'd spoken to the manager at my bank suggesting I might be vulnerable to scams. She'd even gone to my hairdresser, asking if I seemed confused during appointments. But Victoria's biggest mistake was involving her brothers in her scheme. Ray intercepted emails between them, planning how to divide up my assets once they had control. Marcus would get my house. Victoria would manage my investment portfolio. Jennifer would receive my jewelry and personal items. They were planning to put me in assisted living and split my life's work among themselves. That's when I stopped being a victim and became a strategist. I spent the next 4 months gathering evidence like the skilled businesswoman I'd always been. First, I had myself thoroughly examined by 3 different doctors, including a neurologist who specialized in dementia. All confirmed that I was in excellent mental health for my age. Next, I documented every lie Victoria had told. The supposed timeshare scam she mentioned. I'd never bought any timeshare. The online scammer payments. Completely fabricated. I printed screenshots of every transaction from my accounts to prove it. Then Ray helped me discover the real reason behind Victoria's sudden interest in my finances. She owed over $200,000 to various creditors and had been gambling at casinos 3 nights a week for 2 years. Her law practice was failing, and she desperately needed money. But the most damaging evidence came from Victoria herself. In her emails to Marcus and Jennifer, she wrote, "Mom won't live forever anyway, and she's too stubborn to ask for help. This way, we get control of her money while we can still enjoy it." Reading those words from my own daughter was like being stabbed in the heart. I also discovered that this wasn't Victoria's first attempt at financial manipulation. Ray found records showing she'd tried something similar with her ex-husband's elderly mother 2 years earlier. That case had been quietly settled out of court. Armed with this information, I made my own plan. At the birthday party, after I'd revealed Victoria's gambling debts, she tried to regain control of the narrative. "Mom, you're obviously confused," she said loudly. "This is exactly what I was talking about. You're paranoid and making wild accusations." I smiled calmly and opened my folder. "Marcus, Jennifer, would you like to read some of the emails Victoria sent you? The ones where she calculated exactly how much money each of you would get after I was declared incompetent." Marcus looked sick. "Victoria, tell me you didn't actually write those things. It's taken out of context," Victoria said desperately. I handed Jennifer a printed email. "Read the part where your sister says, and I quote, 'Jennifer is too soft-hearted to be useful, but we need her vote to make this work.'" Jennifer read the email, her face growing darker with each word. "Victoria, how could you say these things about Mom? About me? You don't understand the pressure I'm under," Victoria pleaded. "The pressure of owing $200,000 to casinos?" I asked quietly. The entire table stared at Victoria, who was now sweating despite the restaurant's air conditioning. "That's private information," she whispered. "Not when you're planning to steal my life savings to pay for it," I replied. Marcus finally spoke up, his teacher's voice steady but furious. "Victoria, I can't believe you dragged us into this. You made us think Mom was sick." "She is sick," Victoria shouted, drawing stares from other tables. "Look how she's acting. This paranoid behavior proves my point." That's when I played my final card. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording. Victoria's voice filled the air. "Once we get control of her accounts, we can pay off my debts and still have plenty left over. The old bat will never know the difference if we're smart about it." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer was the first to react. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and looked at Victoria with disgust. "I'm ashamed to be related to you," she said quietly. Then she turned to me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what she was planning." Marcus was shaking his head in disbelief. "Victoria, I trusted you. We all did. How long have you been planning this?" "You don't understand," Victoria said, her lawyer composure finally cracking. "I'm drowning in debt. My practice is failing. I needed help, and Mom has more money than she'll ever use. So you decided to have me declared mentally incompetent and steal it?" I asked. "It's not stealing if it's family money," Victoria replied, revealing exactly how she justified her actions. The restaurant manager approached our table, clearly uncomfortable with the raised voices and emotional drama. "Perhaps this conversation would be better continued elsewhere," he suggested politely. I stood up, gathering my folder. "You're absolutely right, Victoria. I think it's time you understood your real situation." We moved to the lobby, where I delivered the news that would change everything. "Victoria, I've already spoken with your creditors. They're willing to accept a settlement of 60 cents on the dollar, if it's paid within 30 days. Her eyes lit up with desperate hope. Mom, if you could loan me— I'm not loaning you anything, I interrupted, but I am prepared to pay your debts directly, to save our family from public embarrassment. What's the catch? She asked suspiciously. You resign from your law practice and check yourself into gambling addiction treatment. You also sign a legal document acknowledging that you attempted to defraud me and agreeing never to contest my will or make any claims on my estate. Victoria's face cycled through anger, desperation, and finally resignation. And if I don't agree? Then I file criminal charges for attempted elder fraud, and your gambling debts become public record when your creditors sue you. The next 2 weeks were the most difficult of my life. Victoria initially refused my offer, hiring her own attorney to proceed with the conservatorship filing. She actually went to court, presenting her fabricated evidence and fake medical concerns. That's when my preparation paid off. My attorney, Sarah Williams, presented the court with medical evaluations from 3 doctors, financial records proving Victoria's lies, and most damaging of all, recordings of Victoria admitting her real motives. The judge was not amused. Ms. Victoria Chen, she said sternly, this court finds your petition to be not only baseless, but potentially fraudulent. I'm ordering an investigation into your conduct. Victoria's attorney withdrew from the case that afternoon. But the real confrontation came at my house 3 days later. Victoria arrived unannounced, looking haggard and desperate. Mom, please, I'm going to lose everything. I led her into my living room, the same room where I taught her to read, where she'd done homework at my kitchen table, where we'd celebrated her law school graduation. Victoria, you were going to put me in a nursing home and steal my life savings. Help me understand how that seemed acceptable to you. She broke down then, crying harder than I'd seen since she was a child. I've made so many mistakes, Mom. The gambling started small, just a way to relieve stress after court cases. Then I needed bigger wins to pay off the losses. I kept thinking I could fix everything if I just had one good night. And when that didn't work, you decided to fix it by destroying me. I never wanted to hurt you, she sobbed. I just needed the money to disappear so I could start over. I felt sorry for her then. This broken woman who used to be my ambitious, brilliant daughter, Victoria. Addiction makes people do terrible things. But what you planned wasn't just desperate. It was evil. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. I know. I hate myself for it. Hating yourself won't fix anything, I said firmly. But getting help might. That night, Victoria signed my agreement. I paid her debts, all $180,000 of them, directly to her creditors. She resigned from her law practice and entered a residential gambling addiction program in Arizona. Marcus and Jennifer both apologized profusely, though they had nothing to apologize for. Victoria had manipulated them just as much as she'd tried to manipulate the system. I should have seen the signs, Marcus said during one of our weekly dinners. She was always asking about your finances, always suggesting you needed help. She's a skilled lawyer, I reminded him. Manipulation is part of her professional training. Jennifer took Victoria's betrayal the hardest. I defended her to my friends when people said she was cold and calculating. I really believed she'd changed, that she was finally trying to be a good daughter. Maybe she was trying, I said. People can have good intentions and still make terrible choices. The hardest part was explaining everything to my grandchildren, Victoria's twins, Emma and David, who were 15 years old. They couldn't understand why their mother wasn't coming home, why she was suddenly in a special hospital in another state. I decided to tell them the truth. Age appropriately, their mother had developed a gambling problem, made some bad decisions, and needed professional help to get better. Will she come back? Emma asked me during one of their weekend visits. I hope so, sweetheart, but she has to want to get better, and that's something only she can decide. David, always the more pragmatic of the twins, asked the harder question. Grandma, did Mom really try to steal your money? I took a deep breath before answering. Your mother made some very poor choices when she was scared and desperate, But people can learn from their mistakes if they're willing to work hard enough. Victoria's treatment program required family participation, which meant I had to attend counseling sessions via video call twice a week. Sitting in my living room, talking to a therapist about my daughter's attempt to defraud me was surreal. "Eleanor," Dr. Martinez asked during one session, "how do you feel about Victoria's actions now that you've had time to process everything?" Disappointed, hurt, but also relieved that I caught it before she could actually succeed. "Do you think you can forgive her?" I considered the question carefully. I think forgiveness is something that happens over time, with evidence of real change. Victoria hasn't just hurt me. She's damaged her relationships with her siblings and traumatized her children. Forgiveness will depend on what she does with this second chance. Victoria, appearing on screen from her treatment facility, looked older and more tired than I'd ever seen her. "Mom, I know sorry isn't enough," she said quietly, "but I need you to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable. I'm not asking you to trust me again. I'm just asking for the chance to become someone worthy of eventually earning that trust back." It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. 6 months after my birthday party ambush, my life had settled into a new normal. Victoria was still in treatment, making progress, but with a long way to go. Marcus and Jennifer visited regularly, and we'd grown closer through this crisis than we'd been in years. The twins spent every other weekend with me, and without Victoria's constant drama, I got to know them as individuals rather than extensions of their mother's ambitions. I also made changes to my estate planning. The experience had taught me that financial security means nothing if your family is willing to destroy each other for money. I established educational trusts for my grandchildren, with funds released based on academic and personal milestones rather than age. I donated a significant portion of my assets to elder abuse prevention programs, and I created a modest trust for Victoria, contingent on her maintaining sobriety and completing community service. Most importantly, I stopped apologizing for having worked hard and saved responsibly my entire life. The experience taught me that even people who love you can become your enemies when money is involved. But it also taught me that I was stronger and smarter than I'd given myself credit for. At 65, I thought my life was winding down. Instead, I discovered that I was just beginning a new chapter, one where I didn't have to worry about protecting people who were planning to betray me. Today, a year later, Victoria has completed her program and moved to a small town in Oregon, where she works as a legal aid attorney helping low-income families. She calls me once a week, usually just to check in and update me on her progress. Our conversations are still stilted. Careful. Trust, once broken so completely, takes years to rebuild. But she's trying, and for now, that's enough. The twins are thriving. Emma wants to study social work, inspired by watching her mother's recovery. David is interested in forensic accounting. He says he wants to help people like me catch financial predators. Marcus and Jennifer have both become more involved in elder rights advocacy. Marcus teaches financial literacy classes at the senior center, while Jennifer started a support group for families dealing with financial abuse. As for me, I've never been happier or more confident in my decisions. I travel now, something I always put off while I was working. I volunteer at the women's shelter, helping other women learn to protect their financial independence. And I've started dating again, a retired engineer named Walter, who makes me laugh and respects my boundaries. The woman who sat at that birthday party, listening to her daughter plan to steal her life's work, feels like a stranger to me now. That woman was afraid of family conflict, afraid of standing up to her children, afraid of being seen as difficult or ungrateful. This woman, the one who outmaneuvered a skilled attorney, protected her assets, and saved her family from a criminal scandal. This woman isn't afraid of anything. Victoria taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most willing to hurt you. But she also taught me that I'm much stronger than I ever imagined, and that knowledge is worth more than any amount of money she could have stolen. Thanks for watching Letters to Helen. If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. and subscribe for more stories of strength, resilience, and second chances.